Hey guys, this is Neil. Welcome back to my channel. Today I have more of the mini flower doodles to share. Since I've gotten so many requests from the previous video, I'm definitely going to turn this into a playlist. Anyway, let's begin by drawing out these 8 mini flowers. For the first flower, I'm going to first begin by drawing out a 5-petal flower with a circle at the center. Then I'm going to add more small petals in between of the larger ones. Then I'm going to finish off with a straight stem and 2 leaves. For the second flower, I'm going to be drawing out a lavender. This is made out of raindrop shapes in the form of a line. If you're new to my channel, I do have a tutorial on this that I made last year, so you could also check that out. Then I'm going to finish off with the stem and a couple of thin leaves for this one. Then we're going to move on to the third flower. We're going to do something fun for this. So I'm going to first draw out a 4-petaled flower with a circle in the middle. The flower is fairly small compared to what I've drawn before. And as the stem, I'm going to draw out a squiggly line with tiny leaves zigzagging along the stem. For the fourth flower, I'm going to draw out a thicker version of lavender. It's not really a lavender, but the components are basically the same, but it has a different silhouette. It's much thicker and a bit more round. Then I'm going to finish off with 1 leaf on the right hand side of the stem. The next flower I'm going to draw is a 3-petaled flower, and for this I want the petals to be rounded instead of pointy, and because this one consists of only 3 petals, I'm going to draw them larger. Then I'm going to finish off with a straight stem and 4 leaves aligned to each other on each side. The sixth flower is a rather quirky one. I'm going to draw lines, and for the lines I'm going to create a bowl shape with it, and at the very top I'm going to add additional circles or dots. Then, like the other flowers, I'm going to finish off with the stem and leaves. The seventh flower is just a basic 5-petal flower, something that you would probably draw as a child, but this time, instead of placing the leaves on each side of the stem, I'm going to place 3 leaves at the bottom, and I'm going to make them rather big. The last flower is an echinacea or a cone flower. I also have a tutorial on this of the larger version, but basically you want to start with a circle in the middle with long petals pointing downwards, and this time I'm going to finish off with only the stem. For the color of the stem, I'm going to be using a mixture of Terra Verde and Lemon Yellow. I'm going to swatch some of these to show you what different amounts and ratios would result in, and because the Terra Verde is a green color already, that is the limit of how dark you can make the green tone. So if you wish to have a deeper, richer green, you can pick a blue tone, and the darkness or the richness depends on which blue you use. So as an example here, I'm going to use ultramarine blue, and because it's a dark blue, if you add the ultramarine to the green mix, then you can create something really dark and some really rich greens. Now let's get to painting the flowers. For the first one, I'm going to be using the colors Permanent Yellow Deep and Vermilion, and I'm going to use my size 2 round brush to begin with this painting. For the first flower, we're going to start by first mixing both of the colors, which is the Permanent Yellow Deep and Vermilion, to create this nice orange color, and I'm going to use that to paint the center of the flower. So I'm just going to paint a circle for that, and then I'm going to clean my brush and just pick up the Permanent Yellow Deep, and I'm going to use this to paint the petals. Then for the petals, I'm going to use the same brush, and I'm going to paint leaf shapes. I'm going to paint the first 5, so if your brush has too much paint or water and it puddles up when you paint such a small area, those puddles won't touch each other because you would have more space in between each petals. And once you've placed down the first 5 petals, you can come back with the same color and paint in between. Once you're done with the flower, I'm going to switch to my size 0 brush and I'm going to paint the stem and the leaves. The smaller brush makes it much easier to create fine lines for the stem, and so I'm just going to stick with the same brush for the leaves. By the way, if you find it hard to paint the flowers using the slightly larger brush, you can also use the size 0 brush because it'll be easier to control, but will probably take a bit longer because it doesn't hold as much water or paint compared to the larger one. So just use the brush that you're comfortable with. For the second flower, I'm going to be painting the lavender, and I'm only going to use cobalt violet light for this. And I'm sticking with my size 2 brush, and I'm going to do small strokes facing each other aligned vertically to represent the silhouette of the lavender. When I'm done, I'm going to take a thicker consistency of the same color and place it in random places where the paint is still a bit damp, and it's going to create a subtle texture from the color gradations. When I first swatched my Holbein paint, I found that this color was a bit weird for my taste in a sense that it was really grainy and too light for my liking, but I think I've come to really appreciate it. It's really calming yet cheerful color that I've come to like, and I think I'm going to use more of this, especially for spring themed paintings. Anyway, going back to the flower, I'm going to finish off with the stem, and for the leaves, I'm going to paint longer leaves for this, and I'm going to paint a couple of them on each side. The next flower we're going to paint is this wiggly one, and we're going to use the colors Permanent Yellow Deep and Rose Madder. I really love this one. I think it looks so fun and whimsical. And by the way, these color guides are just here to show you what I use for this particular painting, but you can change it to any color you want to suit whichever project you're doing if you're including these mini flowers in your painting. So for this one, I'm going to do similar shapes for the petals as the lavender, which are the raindrop shapes, but I want this to be slightly larger than the lavender as these are individual petals of one flower, but I want this one to be fairly small in comparison to the individual flowers that we've painted before. Then I'm just going to add a tiny dot of thick consistency rose madder for the middle of the flower. And then I'm going to finish this off with a wavy line for the stem, and for the leaves, I want the shapes to be cohesive with the petals, so I'm making rounded leaves, but if you like the look of the basic leaf shape, you can also swap it for that. For the fourth flower, I'm going to use a mixture of ultramarine blue and cobalt violet light to create a warmer version of ultramarine blue. Once I'm happy with the mixture, I want my brush to be well coated with the paint. Then I'm going to start by painting the flower by doing small individual strokes, same as the lavender again, but this time I have a different silhouette of the flower in mind. I want the flower to come to a tip at the top, which means the top will just consist of a couple of small strokes or just one. Then it's going to build up towards the bottom, making the silhouette a bit more chunky. I also want to give some negative shapes here and there so it doesn't look overly bulky. For this layer, I want to paint it with medium to light consistency. And like the lavender, I'm going to build up the colors again by using a thicker consistency and doing the same strokes inside of the area where the paint is still a bit damp from the previous layer. Since this is a larger area than the lavender, it will take a bit longer for the paint to settle, so I painted the stem and the leaf before adding the additional layer. Moving along, the fifth flower is very simple. For the main color, I'm going to use manganese blue with cobalt violet light as the additional accent. For this, I'm going to paint rather large petals, and I'm going to start with the petals from either side. Then I'm going to add the one in the middle last, so you get to figure out how wide the last petal would be. Once I'm done with the petals, I'm going to bring the wet paint to a fine tip at the bottom. Then I'm going to drop a touch of cobalt violet light so it creates a nice subtle transition between the light blue and the light purple. Then with the green mixture, I'm going to paint a small triangular shape below the flower to form the bud of the flower. Then I'm going to continue on to the stem and the leaves. The leaves for this one are quite small, and I'm placing 2 on each side of the stem. For the sixth flower, I'm going to be using the colors Rose Madder and Permanent Yellow Deep. This one is very straightforward compared to the other flowers, I think. I'm basically going to paint as I've drawn the flower on top. I'm going to go straight in with my size 0 brush to make it easier to paint the lines. And I'm going to create like a contour of a round bowl shape to suggest thin petals surrounding the bud of the flower. Then I'm going to add dots on top with Permanent Yellow Deep. To finish this off, as usual, I'm going to paint the stem, and I'm going to paint 2 big leaves for this one on both sides of the stem. We're on to the second last flower. For this, I'm going to use the colors Manganese Blue and Permanent Yellow Deep. For this one, the petals are going to look similar to the fifth flower, which has the 3 petals, but this time we're going to paint 5 petals all around. While the paint is still wet, I'm going to add a very thick consistency of Permanent Yellow Deep, so the yellow is very vibrant, and I'm going to let it settle to the rest of the blue color. If you don't want the paint to spread, you can also wait for the petals to fully dry before applying the yellow. Once you're happy with the flower, I'm going to switch my brush and paint the stem now. This time I'm going to make it shorter than usual because I want to place the leaves underneath, and I'm going to paint 3 large leaves for this one. Finally, we're moving along to the last flower, which is the Echinacea, and for this I'm going to use the colors Permanent Yellow Deep and Mineral Violet. If you want to paint a larger version of this, I do have a tutorial on it, so you can also check that out. Anyway, I'm going to first paint the middle of the flower with a Permanent Yellow Deep, and I'm making it quite large of a circle. Then for the petals, I'm going to switch to the Mineral Violet. Then I'm going to make long leaf shapes as the petals, and they're going to face downwards. Then to finish it off, I'm just going to paint the stem without any leaves. So those are the 8 flowers. Before we go, I want to shout out to my friend Asher who just released his first ever EP that he worked so hard on. This is not a sponsored video or anything. He's just a good friend of mine, and I just want to share this with you guys. He's a law graduate, and he's also a good singer and musician, so if you're interested, you can listen to his music on Spotify and iTunes, or his YouTube channel, Asher. Anyway, that's it for the video. I hope you guys enjoyed this one and learned something new. If you're new here, this is my second video that I made of these mini flowers, so please check the first one out if you're interested. I hope you guys have a good day or night, depending on where you are from, and I'll see you next time. Bye!